Welcome to Tammer Bowling Video Ball Reviews. For exclusive content, please join us at patreon.com/tammerbowling. I'm excited to announce our new partnership with Pureit Bowling. Visit our partner pureitbowling.com and use the special code TAMMER when making a purchase to be entered into a monthly drawing. Hey Tammer Bowling fans, welcome to our tutorial series. Today I want to cover surface changes and how they affect ball motion. We'll do this in two parts. Part one here, we'll use a middle-of-the-road ball, the Storm HyRoad X on a house shot. There are a lot of nuances in our sport and it can be really complicated. A lot of factors affect what you see. There's the bowler, which accounts for speed, revs, tilt, rotation. There's lane surface, topography, surface type, material, age, lane patterns, long, medium, short, high, medium, and low volumes. There's the ball itself, the innate cover strength, the core strength. So here we try to normalize all the items above and simply look at the impact of cover stock finish on lane play. So we normalize towards the middle of the road benchmark type ball. I'm the bowler, medium speed, medium revs, around 10 degrees of tilt, 60 degrees of axis rotation, give or take. And the patterns are normal, fresh house shot pattern, about 40 feet in length, 23 units of oil, and we're using DigiTrax as the CAT software. So let's get right into it. The HyRoad X is polished at the factory to be 1500 grit polish, as Storm calls it. We left it as is and started the test, and you can see that I'm just inside the third arrow and I have a decent reaction. To my eye and mind, the polish is a bit finicky on the fresh house shot, but not difficult to get to the pocket. Right away, I think this comes into play later in a set as the lanes break down. Nevertheless, what is it now? Well, DigiTrax tells us that I'm generating 6.25 degrees of entry angle. Breakpoint averages right around 42 feet at the 8 board. Okay, so we move to 4000 Avalon. What do I see? I definitely see a tighter line and less over-under. I mean, the reaction is similar, but just a bit more consistent. And to my eye, it's definitely more consistent, not questionably. DigiTrax tells us that the entry angle is 6.3 degrees, a 42.62 breakpoint distance at the 7 board. And that would be within the margin of error to be probably statistically insignificant for you science nerds like me. However, again, there is no doubt that I would have a better game on the fresh with 4000, as the variation from shot to shot is narrower. And thinking back, this is just about the sweet spot for the HyRoad X on this pattern for me, and you'll start to see why soon. So next we move on to 2000 Avalon, and now what? At this grit on the same line as 4000, it starts up too soon, as you can see. So I have to move in to catch more oil, and here's where things get interesting. This is not a very torquey ball. It's actually a relatively smooth ball for Storm in general, so I'm still able to generate over 6 degrees of entry angle, but the few boards I had to get in lengthened the breakpoint distance to 43.6 at the 7.5 board, so that later breakpoint means a later motion. So you can see a different entry and less continuation through the pins. And you have to pay attention here. This surface was the one that made the HyRoad strongest in quote hook power according to DigiTrax. It's a calculation I won't get into, but it has to do with board coverage and angle generation and so on. But the thinking bowler in me says this is a step too far for this ball, as it forces me a touch too deep for its capabilities. On to 1000 grit Avalon, and we're getting dusty here. I mean, here you can see I have to get right up to the 4th arrow now. That's not a big problem, but it makes the breakpoint more touchy. While my average is 8, 9 was clearly a better breakpoint. 7 and the ball barely makes it back. Now the average entry angle is down to 5.5. It's somewhat as you would expect, but the breakpoint distance is even longer, still at 44.74, and that's because now I'm in the flood zone of the house shot and the ball floats a long time. 5.5 degrees is not a bad angle at all. The bowler should be thinking, what will this much surface do, and is the ball shaping the way I want it to? The ball shapes very nicely if you're tighter with your breakpoint, but it drains its energy going out just 2 boards further, where it is more likely to leave me a 379 than something makeable. Finally, I go to 500 Avalon, and at this grit, I've finally taken away enough back-end movement that the entry angle is down to 5 degrees. I'm still relatively deep, but not quite as deep as 1,000. 500 took away too much from the ball. So up until 1,000, my move was right to compensate for the stronger earlier motion. Finally, I have to move left to compensate for bleeding too much energy. I move all the way back to 16 with a tighter breakpoint to 9, and the ball still deflects through the pins. So while DigiTrax might show us that the ball is mildly less than a 1,000 grit ball, at 500 the ball is almost not usable because it's not torquey enough to churn, and that amount of surface has bled too much energy out of it by the time it gets to the pins. So you get the significant deflection, or if I keep moving left, I'll not be able to stay in the pocket because you start going back into the track friction. So what did we learn? Basically, using the HyRoad X as the test mule, there's a sweet spot around 4,000, maybe 3,000 grit where the ball is at its happiest to balance the cover strength to the core strength. With polish, the cover is maybe too weak. With 1,000 or more, the cover overtakes the core, rendering it somewhat mute. And while 4,000 to 2,000 was just right, allowing the core to store just enough energy to come off the end of this particular pattern with more explosiveness. So there you have it. Study this a little bit to absorb the impact of surface changes on a medium strength ball. And also remember these notes when thinking about watching other videos that only have music in the background and only strikes. It really tells you nothing. Information is power. Good luck and good bowling.
I need to tell you the one damn bowling ball reviews.